Congratulations on finding this 2022 supernatural horror movie called Lullaby. Gets a limited theatrical release but quickly climbs to the top of the supernatural horror box office charts. You might recognize director John Leonetti because the famous Annabelle and Insidious cinematography are his masterpieces. The story begins with a couple of new parents who just welcome their baby boy. But the couple feels overwhelmed because Eli cries from morning until night and nothing calms him down. The wife, Rachel, only gets 2.5 hours of broken sleep every day. Just when Rachel is about to be psychologically overwhelmed, she accidentally finds an old lullaby book. Her mother sends her this gift a few days earlier. This book originally belongs to her older sister. But after her older sister's baby is unfortunately believed to be lost, the lullaby book ends up with Rachel. Rachel softly hums the notes on the pages. Unexpectedly, a miracle really happens. The crying Eli instantly quiets down. The long-awaited peace makes Rachel breathe a sigh of relief. But she completely misses that the mirror on the wall silently cracks. Around 2 a.m., Rachel sleepily glances at the baby monitor. After making sure everything is fine, she gets ready to go back to sleep. Right at this moment, the monitor screen suddenly flickers. When Rachel rubs her eyes and looks at it again, she gets instantly terrified. She rushes into the nursery without even putting her shoes on properly. After confirming there is nothing unusual around her son, she adjusts the monitor and is about to leave. The parrot in the living room suddenly screams wildly. A strange dragging sound also comes from outside the door. But when she looks through the peephole, there is no one outside. Only the mirror on the wall gets a new crack. Early the next morning, while Eli is still asleep, Rachel wants to get intimate with her husband, John. But John sees a terrifying image in the mirror behind her. Rachel is scared stiff on the spot. She slumps on the floor and cannot recover for a long time. She mistakenly thinks John is disgusted by her. In a fit of anger, she pushes the stroller and leaves the house. Rachel originally wants to go to the supermarket to buy a new security camera. But just as she walks over to the shelf, all the lights in the supermarket suddenly go out. A dark shadow instantly appears on the security screen. Rachel is terrified and scoops up her baby, but two reflections of them unexpectedly appear on the monitor at the same time. Rachel abruptly turns around and locks eyes with the face of the crone from the monitor last night. She lets out a blood-curdling scream. But when the clerk rushes over after hearing the sound, there is nothing around. It feels as if everything that just happened is merely her hallucination. However, late at night, Rachel clearly hears Eli crying from the nursery. But she is holding her own son in her arms right now. Eli is sleeping soundly and is not awake at all. Then who exactly is making that crying sound in the nursery? She reaches out to press the switch, but the light just will not turn on. Rachel holds her breath and slowly edges toward the crib. She clearly hears that there is another baby crying under the blanket. To figure out what exactly is happening, Rachel grits her teeth and tremblingly reaches out to lift the blanket. Rachel is scared out of her mind. When John comes home from work, he sees Rachel sitting on the hallway floor looking completely devastated. John quickly asks her what is wrong, and Rachel tremblingly says that it seems a stranger has broken into the house. After hearing this, John immediately rushes into the house to check, but he completely fails to notice that the crone silently appears in the mirror behind him. John grabs a stick nearby. At this moment, a weird baby laugh echoes through the room. The sound is faint and ethereal, but it pierces John's nerves like a needle. Just as he feels something lunging at him from behind, he instinctively swings the stick but ends up tragically losing his pet parrot of many years. As soon as the parrot goes still, all the lights in the house suddenly turn on. Rachel tearfully says that she really sees an old witch-like crone hiding in the mirror. After hearing this, John stays silent for a few seconds before suddenly getting up and walking outside. Rachel thinks John is angry and does not believe her. But unexpectedly, in the next second, he walks back holding that old lullaby book. He points to an illustration in the book and asks Rachel if this is the woman she sees. After getting a positive answer from Rachel, John says that he also saw this crone when they were in the bathroom the other day, which proves that neither of them is hallucinating and there really is an evil presence in this house. The couple unanimously agrees that the problem lies with this wicked lullaby book. So John puts the book into a trash bag and throws it into the downstairs dumpster that same night. They originally think that throwing the book away will solve everything, but late at night, the baby's crying echoes again. John instinctively gets up to check on the baby in the nursery, forgetting that Rachel already brought their son to the master bedroom due to the recent strange events. The baby is already sleeping with them. John acts as if something is controlling him and sleepwalks out of the apartment gate. The front door slams shut with a loud bang. The massive noise finally wakes him up. He then realizes he is standing outside the building while the baby's crying still echoes in his ears. The sound seems to be coming from the downstairs dumpster. John rummages through the dumpster as if possessed, and sure enough, he sees the discarded lullaby book inside. The moment he picks up the book, the baby's crying instantly disappears without a trace. John brings the book back home, wanting to figure out what exactly is going on. But there is almost no text in the book, only some weird and twisted patterns. One of the pages shows a hideous, deformed baby, which instantly makes John break out in a cold sweat. The next morning, Rachel unconsciously hums that lullaby again after waking up. But another female voice suddenly comes from the air, humming along with her. The next second, Eli, who is lying next to her, suddenly disappears. Rachel dives under the covers like a madwoman, frantically searching for Eli. Strangely, the bed that is usually less than 2 meters wide feels completely boundless today. Eli's crying keeps coming from under the thick covers, but Rachel searches every single corner. She still cannot find the baby anywhere. Rachel is terrified and quickly gets out from under the covers, only to realize that Eli is actually lying just a step away from her. John hears the noise and quickly rushes over. Seeing Rachel in a daze, he volunteers to take Eli out for the day to let her rest well at home, and Rachel nods in agreement. But after the father and son leave, Rachel immediately takes a taxi to a psychiatric hospital and asks to see her older sister, Vivian, by name. 2 years ago, Vivian's husband dies in an accident, and her newborn baby also tragically dies. But Vivian keeps saying in a deeply traumatized state that her baby is not dead, but is taken away by a woman named Lilith. Meanwhile, John brings Eli to the synagogue to find an exorcist for help. But after Rabbi Simowitz in the synagogue hears his story, his face instantly turns pale. Rabbi Simowitz says that Vivian also comes here 2 years ago. She encounters the exact same situation as John, but no one believes her at the time. It is not until the tragedy happens that they remember an ancient Jewish legend. Adam's first wife is not Eve, but Lilith. Adam and Lilith are once deeply in love and even create a love song together. Until later, God banishes Lilith from the Garden of Eden. Lilith wanders in the wilderness, keeping company with wild beasts, and constantly gives birth to various deformed and bizarre children. When she sees that Adam and Eve give birth to a healthy child, intense jealousy makes her start frantically stealing human babies. Adam and Eve's descendants sincerely pray to God to stop Lilith's evil deeds. So God once again banishes Lilith deep into the underworld. The world's first lullaby is created to drive Lilith away and protect babies. But Lilith is too cunning. She tampers with her and Adam's love song, disguising it as a lullaby to circulate in the human world. As long as a mother sings this tampered lullaby, Lilith will appear and take her child away. Then she uses the lifeless remains of a long-dead baby as a puppet to replace that child in the human world. But when John asks if there is a way to stop Lilith, Rabbi Simowitz helplessly shakes his head. If there is any solution, Vivian's tragedy never happens. John can only disappointedly take Eli home. But upon arriving home, he finds that Rachel is not back yet. Right at this moment, the sound of running water suddenly comes from the bathroom. John instinctively puts Eli on the floor and gets ready to turn off the faucet. But as soon as John walks into the bathroom, he acts as if something bewitches him. He completely forgets about Eli. He does not even notice when the bathroom door silently closes. Right at this moment, Lilith's Lilim suddenly appears. It first stares at Eli on the floor for a while, and then suddenly reaches out to knock over a nearby vase. But John completely misses the sound of breaking glass. He stares intently at the glass bathroom door as if he sees the crone appear again. However, the moment he violently yanks the bathroom door open, the figure disappears again. Right at this moment, a scream comes from outside. It turns out Rachel is back. She also brings Vivian back home from the psychiatric hospital simply because Vivian claims she can help them drive Lilith away. As soon as Vivian walks through the door, she immediately covers all the mirrors in the house with black cloth. She says this is the only way to stop Lilith from entering the house through the mirrors. John is half skeptical of his deeply traumatized sister-in-law. Right at this moment, his phone suddenly rings. The person on the other end of the line tells him that they know he has the book and needs help right now, so John leaves the house without a word after hanging up. With her older sister's company, Rachel's mental state improves a lot. She sits in a rocking chair holding Eli while chatting with Vivian, temporarily forgetting the fear and despair of the past few days. Meanwhile, John follows the address from the phone call and arrives at a Jewish neighborhood. Under the guidance of a shomrim, he finds an old, gloomy, and dilapidated house. John knocks on the door, but no one answers. Just as he is about to leave, a man suddenly opens the door and signals John to follow him inside. The two quickly head down to the basement. Rabbi Cohen from the phone call is wiping down a lifeless remains. Seeing John come in, the man invites him into the innermost room. Obi Cohen takes the Lullaby book from John, studies it carefully for a while, and tells him that El cannot come directly to the human world right now. So she can only send that crone and those Lilim to help her open the door to this world. Opening the door requires 3 steps. The first step is for someone to sing that tampered lullaby, which Rachel already did. The second step is to defile this room with an animal's visible signs of injury. John instantly thinks of the parrot he tragically lost with his own hands. The first 2 steps are unexpectedly already completed. Now only the final step remains, which is making their Eli show visible signs of injury. As soon as the man finishes speaking, John immediately and emotionally states that he will absolutely protect his son and will never let such a thing happen. The man coldly retorts by asking why he caused the loss of his own pet with his own hands. This is the terrifying part about Lilith's minions. They are best at bewitching people's minds, making you unknowingly help them complete the ritual. As long as Eli sheds a single drop of blood, Lilith will immediately show up and take him away, leaving that golem behind to replace him. Rabbi Cohen hands John a candle and a copper candlestick, reminding him that no matter what happens, he must keep the candle burning until dawn. Only by combining it with the incantation he teaches him can John drive Lilith back to the underworld. Although John is half skeptical, he decides to take a risk and give it a try for the sake of his son's safety. Before John leaves, Rabbi Cohen returns the book to him. He also tells him that this book does not belong to this world at all. Meanwhile, the Quad Lilim and Wolf Lilim at home show up at the same time. They simultaneously crawl toward Eli in the crib. Rachel sleeps very soundly, completely unaware that danger is approaching. Just as their nails are about to graze Eli's cheek, Rachel suddenly wakes up and snatches Eli up. Probably because of long-term sleep deprivation, Rachel accidentally bumps Eli's head when she gets up. The next second, Vivian suddenly walks in and volunteers to take Eli. Strangely, Eli is unexpectedly quiet in her arms and does not cry at all. Seeing this, Rachel breathes a sigh of relief and says she is going to the bathroom to wash her face to freshen up. Taking advantage of this moment, Vivian secretly takes out a needle, lifts the black cloth covering the mirror, and then holds Eli in front of it. Meanwhile, Rachel is still taking her time washing up when she suddenly hears that familiar lullaby. She hurries out and finds that Vivian is actually the one singing. Rachel can hardly believe her ears. Seeing Rachel come in, Vivian instead reveals an eerie smile. She says that this is the only way. Turns out that ever since her son was taken by Lilith 2 years ago, she has been researching how to snatch her child back from her. It is not until she hears that Rachel also gives birth to a son that Vivian comes up with a desperate plan. She asks her mother to send that wicked lullaby book to Rachel. She is absolutely certain that Rachel will sing that song. Once the 3-step ritual is complete and Lilith appears to take the baby, she will follow Lilith into her world to snatch her own child back. After saying this, she does not hesitate to prick Eli's hand with the needle, and blood instantly flows out. Lilith is about to appear. Rachel is furious upon learning the truth, backhands Vivian in a sudden confrontation, and snatches her Eli back. After putting him in the crib, she struggles with Vivian. The 2 sisters fight from the nursery all the way to the door. Vivian suddenly exerts force and ruthlessly overpowers Rachel on the head with a coat hanger. Rachel faints on the spot. Vivian then returns to the nursery, and Lilith indeed shows up. She gently strokes Eli's face and softly hums that lullaby. By the time Rachel wakes up, the crib is already completely empty. John returns home only to see the lifeless remains of a cold baby lying on the bed. Rachel hears John's voice and quickly rushes over, but the couple can only look at each other through the mirror, and no matter how they reach out, they cannot touch each other. Rachel keeps falling downward and eventually lands in a terrifying world piled with babies' lifeless remains. Countless Lilim crawl toward her. The soft, lifeless remains under her feet act like a swamp that slowly sucks her in. In the nick of time, Vivian suddenly appears and saves her. Vivian says that this is Lilith's lair. She adds that they must join forces to save their children. She tells Rachel to hold her breath and loudly call her child's name. Sure enough, this method works. Eli's crying comes from the darkness. Rachel follows the sound and unexpectedly sees John's figure. He is holding a candle, looking everywhere for his wife and son. Rachel does not dare to delay and quickly continues walking toward the direction of the crying. After Rachel leaves, that crone appears again. With every step she takes, she blows out a candle lit by John. When the last candle is blown out, the sound of a cane striking the ground comes from the darkness and gets closer and closer. Right at this moment, John finally remembers the incantation Rabbi Cohen taught him. He quickly mutters it in a low voice. The extinguished candles unexpectedly reignite. The crone is forced to step back by the candlelight and is ultimately repelled back into the mirror. Realizing this method is effective, John starts chanting the incantation non-stop to guide his wife and son on the other side of the mirror back home. After a difficult search, Rachel finally arrives at a space filled with white light. The moment Rachel breaks in, countless babies stolen by Lilith are lying in their respective small beds. All the babies start crying at the same time. Rachel forces herself to calm down and finally finds her son among the countless babies. But right at this moment, Lilith suddenly appears. She puts her index finger on her lips, and the whole world instantly quiets down. The white light disappears, plunging into total darkness. Lilith's expression becomes incredibly hideous because she absolutely will not allow anyone to snatch her Eli away. Akel rushes forward several times to snatch her child back, but is easily forced back to the grue by Lilith. Right at this moment, Vivian suddenly rushes up, holding a sharp object, ruthlessly lands a decisive blow on Lilith's body, and then shoves Eli into Rachel's arms. Vivian shouts for her to run away quickly. Rachel has no time to overthink and desperately flees from there, holding Eli. However, Lilith sings that lullaby again. Vivian instantly shows signs of supernatural strain from all her facial orifices, and her body fades away at a visible speed. Rachel does not dare to look back and desperately searches for the mirror leading to her own home. But she horrifiedly discovers that there are countless mothers here, all unintentionally humming that cursed lullaby. Lilith's power grows stronger and stronger. The mirrors around them start to shatter piece by piece. Rachel's ears start to show visible signs of injury. Just when she is about to give out, she finally sees John on the other side of the mirror. She tightly shields Eli in her arms and uses all her strength to smash into the mirror, finally successfully returning to the real world. But an unwilling Lilith also chases after them. John holds up the burning candle and loudly chants the incantation, forcing Lilith to continuously step back. The last moment, Rachel grabs the copper candlestick and ruthlessly smashes the mirror in front of her. Everything finally returns to peace. The lights in the house turn back on. The couple slumps on the floor in relief. But right at this moment, Rachel suddenly notices a new birthmark on the neck of the baby in her arms. This is not her child at all, but Vivian's son. It turns out that Vivian switches the two babies at the last minute, using Rachel to bring her own son out of Lilith's world. Not long after, John manages to get that lullaby book back from Rabbi Cohen and goes to find Rachel with it. The couple looks at each other, and the determination in their eyes is self-evident. No matter how terrifying the danger they must face this time is, they have to personally go into Lilith's world to bring their own son back. The movie completely ends here. See you next time.